I'm John Batchelor. This is the John Batchelor Show. Lone Wolf, or the jihadists among us. These are nationals in Canada, Canadian nationals. And in New York, the suggestion that an American national, Zell Thompson, used an axe to attack armed policemen. Notice the common connection here. There is some element of radicalization, and the attackers are against men in uniform charged with national security responsibilities. Montreal, there were 2 soldiers attacked by a vehicle driven by a self-radicalized person. In Ottawa, the attack was launched against a young man guarding the National Memorial. And I reach back to France 2012 and to London 2013, thanks to the reporting of Olivier Guita, who is in London. He's an international security and geopolitical risk consultant. And Olivier's job is to connect these dots. Olivier, a very good evening to you. Thank you for this. The murder by Mohamed Merah in France and Lee Rigby in London in 2013 were launched against military or uniform targets. Do you connect that with these tragedies we've seen these last days in Canada and New York? A very good evening to you.
Good evening, John. Very much so. The only caveat that I can put is Mohamed Merah attacked that Jewish school where he killed 4 people. But other than that, you are correct in assessing that soldiers or law enforcement officers are part of the targets. And all this has come back to haunt us after the spokesman from ISIS came up with a statement on September the 21st asking Western Muslim to attack the homeland, most probably, he said, civilian, but also a soldier. So it's not a coincidence at all that, as you pointed out, that soldiers and police officers were targeted. But that's been in the cards for a while.
Olivier, let's back up a little bit and explain how it is that ISIS, which is following recommendations by Al-Qaeda and its related and its kindred of Cain over the years, how is it that they explain to their recruits, some of whom will sacrifice their lives in these attacks, others of whom plan for it or remain permanent outlaws because of it? How do they see attacking a lone, unarmed man at the memorial in uniform in Ottawa or launching an attack against policemen in New York? How does that advance or fit into their crusade?
Actually, everything changed after the beginning of the airstrikes by the U.S. In August. Because before that, ISIS had no strategy or no calling to attacking the West. When they were basically attacked, that's when the West became the number one enemy for ISIS, replacing, by the way, Iran, which was the main enemy of ISIS. For them at this point, the question was, we have a lot of fighters, Westerners already in Syria. It would make sense for the ones that cannot come to attack directly the homeland. And that's where the threat has changed for security officers in the West in just the past month. Because as you've pointed out in many reports, everybody's been looking on the returning jihadist issue and not on the homegrown terrorism. So I would put to you that we have lost some of the focus that we had a few years back on the homegrown terrorism and the lone wolves issue because we focused so much on the returning jihadists. But there's been a lot of talk within jihadist circle of, look, you don't have to come all the way to Syria, Iraq. You could serve the cause by attacking soldiers, law enforcement officers, but also civilians in your cities.
A puzzle with me, though, Olivier. Let's focus on the Zell Thompson attack in New York, which is very close to where I'm speaking right now. This is a man who was unstable over these last years, though he had at one time been in the U.S. Navy, though he had at one time enrolled in Columbia Teachers College, which is an esteemed institution here in Manhattan. But he's taking an axe a small axe, and he's attacking 4 heavily armed men. That is not what I would say is a rational response to the launch of high-performance warplanes from Carl Vinson. How does ISIS explain this to its recruits? It looks laughable without the tragedy.
Right. I mean, the question is creating chaos and terror. I mean, that's the main goal in the long run, is also to think about it is to cripple the economy of the West. Because, the fact that you had in Canada 2 attacks in less than a week
right.
is creating that kind of psychosis that is going to push them. So ISIS has, it doesn't matter if they don't kill as many people as they think they could kill, but just the fact that you don't feel secure in your own city is actually for them a victory. And that's how they frame it.
All right, let's look at what is to be done in London, in Paris, in south of France, which is where Mera attacked. And I mentioned that before Mera attacked the Jewish school, he'd also, I believe, is linked to attacking French paratroopers. So he had attacked uniforms. Or in New York or in Ottawa. These are nationals. They have rights that are, created out of 300 years of conflict in the West to create those rights. How does the apparatus, the national security apparatus, seek unstable people who decide to flip a switch and become suicides?
That's how difficult it is. I mean, that's why, talking to security officers for the past 10 years on that issue, that was always the nightmarish scenario for them. That was basically what was keeping them at night. They were, in a way, less scared of Al-Qaeda planning a large attack than those guys that would fly under the radar and just decide on a whim to attack. The only solution is if that person is not active on the internet, linking up to jihadist websites that are monitored, or reaching out to some people, would be denunciation from his own family. That would be the only way that law enforcement can be tipped off before those guys act, because otherwise there's no way of knowing what anyone has in its head. So that's why, as of today, it still represents, as far as the threat compared to what we can do against it, the most serious problem for the security of our countries.
And the uniforms. Everybody wearing a uniform now must be alert that what you think is an unstable person is a potential attacker. Is that accurate?
Yes, it is correct. And in the UK, officers and soldiers have been told to not wear their uniforms when they're not on duty.
Olivier Guite is a security and geopolitical risk consultant. He is in London, based in Europe, but you see this is a transnational quandary. I'm John Batchelor. This is The John Batchelor Show.